The horror genre is packed with geniuses. If your story's going to take place in space, there has to be a couple of astronaut brain boxes. If there's a destructive AI or murderous computer, there's bound to be an egghead with 3 PhDs who knows how to defeat it. If the story centers around a virus that caused human civilization to collapse, there's guaranteed to be at least one bona fide mad scientist. In the real world, scientists and government officials would have protocols to maintain their safety, but in movie world, so-called geniuses have to act dumb for the story to plunge into horror. And so, with that in mind then, I'm Ellie with What Culture, here with dumb decisions made by extremely smart horror movie characters. Number 9. Astronauts take no precautions with a super advanced alien in life. In life, a group of astronauts on the International Space Station find a probe returning from Mars, only to learn it's carrying a cellular life form which they call Calvin. Calvin rapidly evolves into a complex organism, showcasing his ability to turn into a muscle, neuron, or photosensor cell in an instant. Because this sort of mutation is unprecedented on Earth, the scientists cannot be too careful while handling Cal. Instead, the exobiologist Derry starts experimenting on Calvin immediately after his team captures him. Unsurprisingly, Derry is completely unprepared to handle this hyper-evolved specimen and finds himself being attacked by Calvin. Instead of keeping the alien quarantined in Derry's lab, the engineer Rory opens the door and attempts to kill Calvin with a flamethrower. This gives Calvin the opportunity to kill Rory and escape from the room. Even though it was incredibly stupid for Rory to enter, it was nonsensical for him to use a flammable weapon while surrounded by combustible machinery and chemicals in space. The fact that he didn't blow the whole damn station up with this flamethrower is a miracle. Number 8. Spider expert antagonizes spiders in arachnophobia. In arachnophobia, an entomologist called Atherton discovers a new species of spider that's astoundingly aggressive and venomous. When he learns these arachnids have killed people in a town in San Francisco, he reasons the 8-legged critters could pose a serious threat to society if left unchecked. So when Atherton discovers the queen's nest in a barn, what does he do? He walks right into the belly of the beast without a care in the world. When he sees the queen spider has caught rats in its web, Atherton remains unfazed. Not only that, he tugs on the queen's web to antagonize her. To the surprise of no one, the arachnid bites him to death immediately after. And just to be clear, Atherton isn't a random zoologist. He specializes in arachnology. He knows more about arthropods than any character in this movie, and yet thought he didn't need to wear a protective suit while entering the den of a venomous spider. Number 7. Blair infects himself with the alien in The Thing. The Thing follows a research team in Antarctica who discover a shape-shifting alien in the ice. Because this creature can take on the appearance, memories, and personality of anything it assimilates, the researchers believe the Thing is hiding among them, posing as a human. It goes without saying that each researcher is a genius. However, Blair is arguably the smartest. Not only is he an expert biologist, he's the one who discovers the true dangers of the Thing. That is why it's so ironic how Blair makes the dumbest mistake possible. While observing an assimilated corpse, Blair places his pencil on it before putting it in his mouth. Even though Blair knows this lifeform can consume any organism it comes into contact with, he nonchalantly placed the alien cells right in his gob. Although it's never directly stated, eagle-eyed viewers assume this action is what led to Blair being consumed by the Thing. Number 6. Neville's sacrifice is pointless in I Am Legend. I Am Legend revolves around a US Army virologist called Robert Neville, who's living in deserted Manhattan after a virus transformed most of humanity into vampiric creatures called Dark Seekers. Neville spends every single day testing new strains of the virus, hoping to find a cure. Now, just because someone is a scientific genius doesn't mean they can't act dumb in other ways. To survive an apocalypse like this, Neville proves you need to be fit, not just physically, but mentally. However, that big brain of Neville's goes out the window in his last scene. After the Darkseekers corner him, he urges the survivors he found, Anna and her son, to hide inside a reinforced shed. After they seal themselves in, Neville activates a grenade, sacrificing himself to kill the Darkseekers. But why didn't he just hide in the shed with the others? If he threw the grenade at the creatures before leaping into the shed with Anna, he wouldn't need to kill himself. Number 5. Dr. Hallen's plan makes no sense in The Blob. In The Blob, an alien amoeba invades a town in Pennsylvania, assimilating anything it touches. When an old man called Barney gets too close to the globulous extraterrestrial, it wraps itself around his arm, severely burning him. After Barney is transported to Dr. Hallen's office, the physician deduces the burns are acidic, meaning the blob is composed of acid. By making this observation, the doctor reasons the only thing that can destroy the blob is acid. However, that deduction doesn't make any sense. That's like saying you can put out a fire with more fire. Anyone with a simple understanding of chemistry knows the only way to break down an acid is with a base. Instead, Hallen encourages his nurse to chuck acid at the blob, which obviously makes it stronger. Hallen continues to be an idiot by shooting at the gloopy creature with a gun. Even though he knows physical objects will make the blob bigger and stronger, this fact doesn't discourage him from feeding it with bullets. Number 4. Jigsaw keeps working with criminals in Saw. The Saw franchise centers around a dying man called John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, who places ungrateful people into death traps to make them acknowledge they didn't appreciate their lives. Jigsaw designs these tests so the participant can walk out free if he or she is willing to shed blood. Because Jigsaw is a master engineer, constructing these contraptions is second nature to him. But since he is at death's door, he needs some help, like a lot of help. And who does he choose to help him? A mentally ill woman called Amanda and a murderous cop called Hoffman. Even though this pair aren't trustworthy, Jigsaw believes they have what it takes to carry out his work to the letter, which they don't. Now, you could argue that Jigsaw chose these two out of desperation, but when he learns they're going against his wishes, it doesn't make sense why he keeps relying on them. Amanda gave one of Jigsaw's victims no chance of surviving his test, violating his rules. She also repeatedly threatened to kill the surgeon who's keeping Jigsaw alive. Hoffman doesn't even hide the fact that he has no intention of maintaining Jigsaw's legacy. Nevertheless, Jigsaw does very little to stop his disciples' misdeeds. Number 3. Leave the phone on silent in World War Z. In World War Z, the United Nations order one of their retired investigators, Jerry Lane, to lead an operation to stop the zombie pandemic. Although Jerry hasn't worked for the UN in years, they know he's the best man for the job. He's a pilot, a sharpshooter, a medical expert, and a tactical genius. During the outbreak, he kills the undead with guns and basic weapons, builds ad hoc armor, performs surgery, prevents the virus spreading by hacking off the infected limbs of people, and successfully creates an antidote to combat the zombies. So not only is he intellectually gifted, he is infinitely resourceful and reliable. But sometimes he's kind of an idiot. While he and a group of soldiers investigate an army base, Jerry's wife rings him. But because Jerry didn't switch his phone off, the blaring ringtone alerts the zombies, causing them to attack. Look, if the average person can remember to set their phone to silent while in church or in the cinema, a super genius probably wouldn't forget while surrounded by flesh-eating creatures that are triggered by the slightest sound. Number 2. Hiring one IT guy for an entire dinosaur park in Jurassic Park. To make Jurassic Park become a reality, eccentric industrialist John Hammond vowed to spare no expense. While Alan Grant and the rest of his party explore this dinosaur-filled amusement park, it looks like Hammond took every precaution imaginable. Not only are all the dinosaurs sealed behind electrified barricades, their DNA has been tinkered with so they cannot reproduce. Because they are kept alive with a specific nutrient, the dinos would die very quickly if they managed to escape. Despite Hammond's reassurance, his safety measures were far from foolproof. After a disgruntled computer programmer called Nedry shut down a security sample to steal clone embryos, dinosaurs break out of their cells and begin killing people. Even though Nedry prevented the security system from being turned back on with a firewall, this should have been a piece of cake to override. At least it would have been if Hammond had hired more than one computer programmer. Considering Hammond has more money than God, why didn't he have a legion of computer technicians working on the island to ensure this sort of thing could never happen? Number 1. Everyone's stupid in Prometheus. Prometheus revolves around a space crew investigating potential life on an alien world. Now, any normal human being would take every precaution conceivable while exploring a planet billions of light years from Earth. But because these guys are experts in archaeology, geology, and biology, they would take in countless factors the average person would never consider. Sadly, Prometheus is infamous for having possibly the dumbest geniuses in all of cinema. These characters don't just make bad calls, they act like they're doing their best to out-idiot each other. Holloway is a scientist and yet takes his helmet off because he assumes the air on the planet is breathable. When Milburn sees an extraterrestrial, he thinks it's totally okay to go right up to it, which unsurprisingly leads to the creature killing him. Also, how did the scientists get lost in a tunnel if the pilot was surveying their journey on a monitor? Even though Ridley Scott's Alien prequel was dripping in plot holes, it's the character's stupidity that irked viewers the most.